We are about to build our dream Zen office setup. We're going to spend the next 5 minutes buying all the tech and the fun stuff, and then we're going to put it together to create the most beautiful workspace that you've hopefully ever seen. Okay, so desk. We currently use one called the Secret Lab Magnus Pro. It's just a little bit too gamer RGB for this room.
I think my key thing is cable management, no cables. I want it to look just complete and clean.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Minimalist wooden desk. There's the E7 Pro.
This feels a lot cleaner, this cable management.
Yeah, it's right at the very, very back, which is going to be out of your line of sight. Let's do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, let's do it.
So chair-wise, I've been internally debating a few different options. This is the Aeron by Herman Miller. You know the current chair I have in the studio? That's also Herman Miller. What do you think of the design?
It doesn't fit, but it's functional.
Yeah, it's got to be a balance. Obviously, ergonomics are the priority, but the dream scenario is if we can get ergonomics and design. Okay, this is another option. So this is the steel case Gesture. So this is the one that New York Times said is the best desk chair based on its flexibility. Oh, also the ability to customize. That we get exactly the shade of color we want.
That's pretty nice.
So they did a massive study that found 9 new postures that are not adequately addressed by current seating solutions.
It's pretty cool. Wait, so you start off working, then you're leaning in, lying back. Yeah, let's do it. I want to try every one of those positions on the chair.
So I found this the other day. This is the Samsung Flip Pro. And I swear to God, in my 14 years of covering Samsung products, I had no idea this was a thing. It seems like it's a massive screen that's got a touch pen, so it's interactive. You can actually project up to 6 different displays onto this one display. So every couple of months we do these team days where we get together the 10 or so people on our team. And so here, 6 people at a time could share their screens onto this massive screen, and then we can annotate on top of that.
That's a next level collaboration. Okay, I think we absolutely need this. So what about the stuff that we actually put on the desks?
So I think we already put together a pretty banging setup in our old house. We just need to make it light theme and then use this change as an opportunity to upgrade the things that we can. Invisible undersurface wireless charger. You put this underneath your desk and your desk becomes the wireless charger.
That is seamless.
I'm not sure I trust it, but I'm curious. So one idea I had was if we're really trying to go with this theme of like tranquility, nature, elements, some way to get a tree in here.
It sounds crazy, but I kind of like it.
Have you seen big bonsais?
Yes.
They look absolutely stunning, but do you know how much bonsais are? The more aesthetically pleasing the shape of the real bonsai, the more you pay. And for the nice ones, I've seen them for like 100,000.
Okay, so what about fake?
And some fake options.
This is way bigger than I was expecting.
That is awesome. The only other option is we could go for a real tree, but just a different style.
I think you're right that it's going to be really hard to maintain a real tree, but I think we can get real plants around the room, but this one big tree can be an artificial one, surely for the vibes.
We should look into it.
Yeah.
I'm really starting to build a picture of this room. Like imagine tree surrounded by rocks, and there's some sort of element of flowing water.
I love the sound of trickling water. I think it's so peaceful.
Something like this.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, this is actually crazy. They can create a custom stainless steel mesh to make the water have whatever movement pattern that you want it to. The only thing left to do was to finish off each of our desk setups with a few personal touches. I'm going to level with you. I was really nervous about how this room was going to turn out. We took a lot of gambles here. I mean, I've never bought a water feature before, let alone 2 that are both bigger than me. I feel like this tree could have looked incredibly fake. This joinery behind it, just a waste of space. And this moss wall, yes, we ended up going for a full-on wall-to-wall moss feature. It's the kind of thing that could have looked very tacky. But I think we have just pulled it off. Welcome to the dream office. So let me show you the next generation desk setup, and then I want to show you my absolute favorite thing in this room. Okay, the Mr. Who's the Boss desk setup 2.0. It actually looks like there's a lot less going on than before, but there's actually a lot more. So just for this keyboard, for example, I went through 7 other keyboards that I thought would be great before settling on this one. Every one I tried had a different issue. One was too high, so I got wrist strain from bending. One was too resistive, so it required a tiring amount of force to activate the keys. And another one of them was just too loud for a communal space. And I'm really starting to sound like tech Goldilocks right now. You very quickly realize that nothing on a spec sheet will actually tell you how a keyboard is going to feel under your fingers. But then I found this low free flow, which is just right. Ready? Yes, it is glorious. Very fast to type on. You don't have to press hard. It's really low profile for a mechanical keyboard, but it's still got that great the thunk with each key. I love these little side lights that we can use to accentuate the whole Japanese Zen garden theme that we've got going on. But the funny thing about this keyboard, and actually the really impressive thing about this keyboard, is after I tested all these 7 keyboards, I handed them all to Drisha to test, and then I handed them all to Joseph, our everything guy, to test. And both also decided that this one was their favorite. So they've done something right here. But then this is nearly as important as the keyboard itself. I also went through so many wrist rests. We started off with this one from Lights that you could actually flip to adjust its height, but even on the lowest setting, it was too high. There's this cloud one that to me just didn't feel plush enough. I nearly gave up on this mission until I tested a keyboard from Razer called the Type Ultra. Didn't even think much of the keyboard, but the wrist rest it came with, oh my God, this is literally everything I've been looking for. It's super plush, like a pillow. It's very clean looking, it's white and silver. And then when I found that it was still just a tiny bit too high for me, I realized I could flip it around. And that was a big moment. It all suddenly just slotted together. And then the mouse is the MX Master 3S. It's exactly the same mouse that I used to use, but now in white. And that's because this is actual perfection. It works on any surface. The battery lasts for about 2.5 months. The clicks are really satisfying, but at the same time silent, which is great when there's people around. And then also, you don't just have a vertical scroll wheel, you also have a horizontal scroll wheel.
Oh, I can do that.
Educating the masses and my wife. And then finishing off that trio is this mouse mat. I just think there's something really nice about having an oversized mouse mat. And it's not like you're actually going to pick up your mouse and start using it over here, but it's the feeling that you can, which is, it's kind of like the appeal of open plan living, as opposed to having everything split into separate rooms, which is something that we were specifically looking for with this house. And again, we tried quite a lot of these before deciding that we didn't like the way that these stitched fabric ones looked and that this faux leather was definitely the way to go. Okay, taking a step back for a minute, we really lucked out with these chairs. It's much easier to test keyboards and mice and mouse mats than it is chairs. So when we ordered these, that was pretty much us committing to these steel case gestures. But very first time I sat down on this thing, my back just went zip. And it was like, it was almost violating, but like very posture correcting. Then I realized that it's also like the most adjustable chair I've ever sat on. So I have right now about 6 different things that I can control. There's the obvious up and down. I mean, that works as normal. But then I rotate the outside part of that same knob, and that's actually seat depth. So the seat just gets longer. And that actually does make it more comfy because my legs are right now being supported right up until my knees. There's another dial here that lets you choose how much force is required for the back to recline. So I've set mine so that it's easy enough that it doesn't feel like I'm pushing, while having enough resistance that it doesn't feel like I'm falling. It is really, really freeing. It kind of feels like the chair is an extension of me. Like, I'm never thinking about the chair, I'm just thinking, what position do I want to be in? And this makes that possible, while keeping my spine aligned. There's adjustable lumbar support on the back. You can change how far the headrest comes out. But I've got to say, the crowning jewel is these armrests. There's a little paddle underneath them, and if I hold that, I can go all the way down, I can come all the way up, I can go all the way out, I can come all the way in. There's more. I can rotate them to whatever angle I want, and then I can even decide how far forward or backward they come. And the reason this is such a game changer, well, bring them to the same height as the desk, angle them in a little bit, come forward, and all of a sudden, this extends my wrist support all the way to my elbow. I can have my arms at the perfect 90-degree angle all the time. And I can say with 100% confidence, as someone who usually does struggle with typing for long periods of time, I have never been more comfortable. This combination of items and positions seems to have actually fixed a very real long-term issue that I've been having, and you can probably tell how much joy that brings me. Okay, just before we get to the meaty back end of this setup, where I would say it goes from good to God tier, what is this? Well, we knew we liked the idea of some sort of acoustic paneling. You want the office to be a quiet place, especially since we're so close to the kitchen. We started off by looking at wooden paneling like this, but it just didn't feel exciting enough. So this is from a company called Plant Plan, and I think it's absolutely incredible. The way it works is you first agree on a design, they then build that design, but split it into lots of smaller panels so they can ship it and bring it in. And then they slot all of those pieces together using spare moss that they bring with them to patch up the seams where possible. And what I love is that the day this thing got installed, we walked in and 60% of the echo in this room had just disappeared. The only thing was, there wasn't quite enough light on it. So me being me, we created a whole extra frame around it so that we could have an LED that spills light onto it. And here we are. The end product is, it's beyond my wildest dreams for something that we could have in an office, especially when you compare it to the cubbyhole in the kitchen that we used to work in. We tried to think of a joke where this is the Mr. Who's the Moss logo. Moss isn't very good. Bruh. Oh, but then also, what about this desk? Well, this is kind of awesome. So after already deciding to buy FlexiSpot, the FlexiSpot company actually reached out to sponsor this video. And this is like the easiest integration we've ever done, because this E7 Pro is not the most expensive sit-stand desk. It's not the fanciest sit-stand desk, but it might just be the best one. The value is insane. It's just that the fundamentals are so good. This thing has a 160 kilogram carrying capacity, which means you can put practically anything on this desk and you can lean as much as you want. This thing has effectively zero wobble, which is honestly a rarity with standing desks. Like, vigorous typing is usually enough to cause monitor wobble. Not here. And this tray at the back has actually been the only way we've managed to achieve our cable management goals, but I'm getting to that. And if you're not happy, then FlexiSpot offer over 30 days of a free return window and over 10 years of warranty. So you can just try it. So, onto the back now. This is the Journey Nova. It's a Qi 2 fast wireless charger for your phone, but also an AirPods charger with a little mood lighting. I've gone for the AirPods Pro 2, by the way, because they sound great, the noise isolation is practically unmatched for in-ear earphones, and they wirelessly charge. Plus, this Journey also has a hidden watch charger too that you can pull out from the back. I think it's a really sexy bit of kit, to be honest. But also, the way it's designed, it crams a lot of functionality into something that has quite a minimal desk footprint. Also, I've specifically chosen for it to sit here so that I can still see if anything comes in, but I can't immediately reach it. Because for me, that creates enough of a barrier that I'm only going to grab it if it's something important, as opposed to something mildly distracting. Whoa! While Drisha and I have gone for those on our desks, Joseph has actually gone for the Charge It thing. And it works. It does. So when you're installing it, you get this LED mat that shows you how much power the thing is providing to each spot. And then you use that to determine where the sweet spot is and therefore where you're going to put this sticker down.
So the idea of having my phone all the way over there and having to reach for it was a little bit traumatic. So I thought to have it right within hand's reach was a good idea.
So moving on, this is a terrarium that I found on Etsy. The way that I've been thinking about this is we have this absolutely enormous towering wall of greenery over here. If we don't tie that into the rest of the room, it's going to look really out of place. And that's why every part of the room, I've made sure that we've dotted it with elements of that mossy green. We've actually got some artificial moss that I put at the base of the big bonsai. I think it comes together really nicely. Now, on top of this monitor, this is the new BenQ Screenbar Pro, and this is very cool for a few reasons. So in our previous desk setup in the old house, we used to have the BenQ Screenbar Halo, which had this little puck remote that you'd use to control it. This doesn't even need it. It's got a tiny little speaker here, which emits very high frequency sound waves, which are outside the range of human hearing. And then it has a sensor that figures out how long those sound waves take to get back, thus determining if you're sitting in your seat. And if you are, it gently wakes itself. And if you leave after 5 minutes, it turns itself off, which is not just better for the old energy bill, but it's just one less thing that you need to think about. I literally sit, I type my password, and I am in. This setup is so easy to use, with now one further less piece of desk clutter, since I don't need a remote for the light. It's also 30% brighter than the last screen bar. It gets like perfectly even desk coverage, since the light is coming directly from above instead of from one side. The only one thing that it doesn't have that the old one did is a light behind the screen bar that would light up the wall behind you to reduce the fatigue on your eyes. But since we're not up against a wall anymore, that wouldn't do anything anyways. And now, in terms of the monitor itself, as you saw, we ended up going for Dell's. These are 40-inch curved, ultra-wide, 5K resolution screens with a 120 Hz refresh rate. And they are exactly as good as that spec makes it sound, while also tying into the whole white and silver rule for everything that goes on this desk. Zero regrets for this, honestly, which is funny because I totally associate Dell with the budget bulk order tech from school computer rooms back in the day. But this is where we get to some of my proudest work. So the Dell comes with a stand, just like basically any monitor. But what we've done is swapped out each one of those stands for an Ergotron HX articulating arm. And not just because it sounds like Megatron's best friend. I think it adds a lot to this feeling of openness that I've been trying to create. You know, the same reason that we have such massive desk mats. It means that if you feel like you want to move your monitor back to relieve your eyes, you push it back. If you feel like there's too much sun coming in, you can rotate it. It means that if you decide that you like your chair really high, but then your desk a little bit low because it gives you good typing posture, then you can just push the monitor up or down to still keep it perfectly at eye level. All with two other benefits. The arm takes up less room on your desk than the stand. This one is particularly enormous for some reason. And it has also helped me to pull off the most hardcore cable management job of my lifetime. So as you heard earlier, from the very beginning of planning out this room, we knew that we wanted to have 0 cables on show, if we could get to that. That was a crazy thing to say so casually. We had absolutely no idea at the time what trying to achieve that goal would involve, because if you step back and really think about it, there are so many things going against us achieving that in this room. There's only 2 sets of main sockets, but this is the single room with the most devices connected. There is not 1 or 2, but there are 3 full desks which we need to power everything on. All the cables, they come out into the room as opposed to it being the other way around and backing against a wall where you can just kind of shove them behind and not worry about them. But then, as if we needed one, the final boss of cable management issues is that because we went for sit-stand desks, there's movement involved. So you can't just tape every cable down, there has to be flex. The long and short of it is, every spare evening I've had for the last 2 weeks, I've been in this room, testing all sorts of different arrangements of tapes and cable holders and cable management mechanisms, and one by one, we actually did figure out how to hide each and every cable however we needed to. Shoutouts to double-sided transparent sticky tape, these cable sleeves from Alex Tech, which keep all of the smaller wires together to make it look like one clean, thicker cable, and this rug. There's actually a 3rd set of power sockets in this room, but they're right in the very middle. We originally assumed there's absolutely no way we're going to be able to use them without turning this room into one of those Mission Impossible laser tripwire scenes every time you walk in. But this rug only just covers the power sockets while getting close enough to these desks to make the power cables going to them basically disappear, while also in itself looking like raked sand, just like you see in a Japanese Zen garden. So, powering the whole thing then is the M4 MacBook Pro. I've gone for a MacBook because I like the idea that I have one computer, so when I go somewhere, I unplug it, and that's the one I take with me. And this is, as you'd probably expect given the price, a flipping fantastic computer. The only thing I would say is, while the jump between Intel MacBooks and Apple Silicon-powered MacBooks was game-changing in terms of especially battery life, everything since that has felt pretty incremental. Like, I noticed practically 0 difference when I switched from an M2 MacBook Pro to an M4 MacBook Pro. And then just before my number 1 favorite thing in this room, a couple of finishing touches. So this, well, is Fluid Stance The Level. In the old setup, we had the basic Fluid Stance plain board. And honestly, I think it's very expensive for what it is. But then, like, it's not expensive for what it means for me. Like, if you properly measured the materials, it's just a bunch of plastic and foam that they're charging over $100 to buy. But then, if you think about it another way, that plastic and foam allowed me to stand while I was working, it kept my core active, and it gave my body something to do for 3 to 4 hours every single day, and that's very valuable to me. So we decided this time to upgrade from the plain to the level. This is their top-end model, and yes, it has fancier materials, and yes, it gives you slightly more space, but I mostly went for it just because it fits the room's aesthetic way better. We got the Desk Cycle 2 under Drish's desk, and it is surprisingly good. It's very quiet, and it's also got a surprising amount of resistance for something so tiny. Like, this isn't just something to do with your legs, it can be a workout if you want it to. We also wanted to get some speakers in here, you know, in case you want to have a little boogie while you work. But we were also very aware that if you have some big floor standers in the middle of this room, it's gonna kill the decluttered vibe that we're trying to build. So we found these speakers from Meridian, which have a really wide cone of sound, and we stuck them in the ceiling. And then we found this subwoofer from the same company, and we knocked it up there. This is actually a really powerful setup. This could well be the backup rave spot. And then this is the Samsung Flip Pro. Originally, we were very much under a bigger is better mentality, and we went ahead and ordered the 86-inch version, but very quickly realized it completely killed the vibe. We swapped it out for the 55-inch one, and now I actually like it. We mostly just use it as a whiteboard. This is actually particularly good at planning out the logistical nightmare that is this video series, but with all the benefits of it being digital. Plus, like, just having a screen that you can roll around into any room you want, designed so that it can directly connect to practically any gadget you have, it will never not be useful. Did I just connect that perfectly? It doesn't do that automatically, does it? Oh my God. Okay, so you've seen light mode. Now it's time for dark mode. And with that, this is my personal favorite thing about this office. And I do need to caveat that because having two large water features like this, especially indoors, is not a joke. There are layers of maintenance. You have to think about air humidity, you have to think about waterproof paint, but just look at it. It's so simple. Water falls from the top, and this metal mesh provides the easiest surface for the water to flow down. But because there's nothing else to it, and because we've added these matching wooden enclosures around the top and the bottom to make them look like part of the room, it's just so minimal. And I was saying this to Drisha the other day, watching these things is so close to that mesmerizing feeling of watching fire. You get this really soothing sound effect, and it never looks the same twice. And that's the office. Remember to check out FlexiSpot for these absolute beauties. And they're also having a Black Friday sale. So if you are interested, now's a pretty good time. And I'll catch you in the next one.